Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Spark Reynolds Facebook Live and podcast.
Hey guys.
Please let us know where you are tuning in from, and as we go along, ask your questions. And you know what? It doesn't even have to be related to our subject matter. If you have any questions, just ask away. And with that, last week, if you joined us, we talked about the eviction moratorium, and ironically, a few hours after we got done our Facebook Live, they extended the eviction moratorium once again. So,
Of course.
interesting. And this week, we're actually going to be talking about the foreclosure moratorium and how that will affect us real estate investors. So, Brian, why don't you start us up on when this ended and what this means?
So unlike the eviction moratorium, the foreclosure moratorium did expire at the end of July, at least officially. Unofficially, it's a lot more complicated than that, and we're going to get into that today. So, the short version here is that I wouldn't expect an enormous wave of foreclosures about to, flood flood the market. So the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, they have instituted 3 new rules to slow down foreclosures for the remainder of 2021. And those rules make it pretty difficult for lenders to foreclose. Now, keep in mind that these rules only apply to owner-occupied properties. These do not apply to second homes. These do not apply to investment properties. So here are the 3 rules, and we're not going to get into, the weeds of these, but the first rule is that the lender must collect a loss mitigation application from borrowers who are behind, and only after they go through all foreclosure avoidance options can lenders proceed with foreclosure. And they have to give borrowers at least 3 options for foreclosure avoidance. One is resuming regular payments and moving any missed payments to the end of their mortgage term. Another is modifying the loan's length or interest rate. Or 3, working with the seller or working with the borrower for them to sell the home and repay the loan. So lenders have to.
Ironically, foreclosures take a long time anyway, so now they're going to take even longer.
Well, right. So, Denny, you and I talk all the time about how long evictions take and how landlords often underestimate, and especially the general public vastly underestimates the amount of time that it takes to evict someone. It's a lengthy process in most states and most cities. Foreclosure process is even longer because the lender doesn't own the property. The borrower owns the property. So you have to actually you have to take legal ownership away from the borrower in order to foreclose, rather than just taking possession like landlords do, since the landlord actually owns the property. So yeah, the foreclosure process is pretty lengthy and expensive for lenders to begin with. It's now even longer. So that was the first rule. Second rule is if the lender suspects that the property is abandoned, the lender must confirm that the property is abandoned under state and local laws where the property exists, where it sits, before they can proceed with foreclosure. And the third rule is if borrowers are unresponsive, if they do not respond to the lender's requests for a loss mitigation application when they're behind, then the lender has to wait until the homeowner is at least 4 months behind on their rent and has been unresponsive for at least 90 days before they can even begin the foreclosure process.
You mean on their mortgage, right? Yeah.
Right. So
sorry, you said rent.
I'm sorry. Behind at least 4 months behind on their mortgage payments, and unresponsive for at least 90 days. So the bottom line is, even though the foreclosure moratorium technically ended at the end of July, the Biden administration has basically tied lenders' hands on this, so they will not easily be able to foreclose on any homeowners for the rest of 2021. Now, these rules do expire on January 1st, 2022. They could be extended, of course. We've seen a lot of that going around over the last year and a half. Now, keep in mind that these rules are in addition to existing rules on foreclosures. that bar loan servicers from starting the foreclosure process until at least 120 days of delinquency, and until the homeowner is behind for at least 120 days, 4 months basically, on their mortgage payments. So it's really hard for lenders to foreclose right now. Now
Jeff Moore has put in a comment. I have been predicting no for a year.
No wave of foreclosures. Yeah, I mean the government is not going to allow a wave of foreclosures, basically, is the short version here.
No more than a wave of evictions.
Right. So these temporary rules that the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau has put in place, they do apply to all primary residences, not just federally backed mortgages. Not that it would matter that much anyway, because most homeowner mortgages in the U.S. are based on federally backed mortgages. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA, USDA, VA. That's just how the industry is. So keep that in mind. And speaking of federally backed mortgages, all of these all of these divisions of the government and all of these different federally backed loan programs, they all have very extensive forbearance programs that are still in place. The earliest of those to expires at the end of September. Some of them expire at the end of October. And again, they may well be extended. So keep that in mind. So, are there going to be any foreclosures hitting the market over the next few months? Maybe a few, second homes, investment properties, they are still able to be foreclosed on by lenders.
Let me ask you this, Brian.
Yeah.
What about small multis? And somebody is living in one and renting out the three? Do you think they have some leeway?
They fall under this protection as long as the property is 4 or fewer units, and as long as they live in one of those units.
Okay.
So for lending purposes, residential properties are 1 to 4 units. Anything over 4 units is classified as commercial for lending purposes.
Thanks.
So there will not be a huge influx of cheap inventory to hit the market over the next few months and alleviate this housing shortage that we've all been talking about for the last year. And with second homes and investment properties, these are typically owned by the upper middle class. And the middle class, the upper middle class Americans, they're all doing pretty well, actually. I mean, home values are up significantly year over year. Stock markets are up significantly. So the middle and upper middle classes are actually doing pretty well. Not a lot of them are in foreclosure. So even if lenders could foreclose on these, and they can, of course, on second homes and investment properties, there's not that many of these households that are behind on these loans. So, Denny, let's talk about some alternative ways to find good deals on properties, since there isn't going to be this enormous flood of foreclosures, hitting the market and introducing a whole bunch of cheap inventory to alleviate this housing shortage.
Well, we have talked about some of these before on other programs, but one is to contact homeowners that are in a tax sale. And to do that, we have some different ways to find that out, right, Brian?
Absolutely. PropStream being the easiest. That's
right.
I know that's one that you rave about, and it's very good software. It's not pennies. I mean, it's not super cheap, but it's really good. It's very effective in finding distressed sales, basically, and that includes far more than just foreclosures. That includes tax sales, of course, judgments and liens and divorces. And as far as
pre-foreclosures when they're allowed.
Yeah. So that's right, and it does include homeowners who are behind and where their lenders are starting to go through the process of foreclosing, but haven't actually put the property up for auction yet. So pre-foreclosures are actually a great way to find deals. But yeah, with tax sales, don't expect local governments to be as forgiving as the federal government with these things. Local governments want their money. So if you don't pay your property taxes, I mean, they're going to sell your property at tax sale. And even, property owners who are in the beginning stages of tax sale, a lot of them just want to sell. They don't want to deal with the hassle. They obviously don't want their property to go to tax sale. So often
Right.
they will be amenable to a quick sale, potentially with a lowball offer, um, just to end the headache of the whole thing.
Absolutely. Ashley has asked, what was the program called? Ashley, I did put a link to it, and it's called PropStream. And they do offer a free 7-day tryout, and it's cool just to, even if you decide not to go forward with it, it's fun to play around for the 7 days, see what's on there.
Yeah. I mean,
So,
it gives
Brian,
you.
what about, oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, so Denny is a realtor, of course, a licensed realtor. And Denny, I've heard you rave many times about the information that's available on PropStream that is not available on the MLS. So,
Yes.
anyway.
That is sadly true. Sadly true.
So yeah, homeowners in tax sale, homeowners in pre-foreclosure. If you see any, homeowners with judgments and liens, homeowners getting divorce, you can contact all of these people. You can send them letters, postcards. You can. Some of these services will also offer you their contact information beyond just their address on public record. So
Right.
things like their email address, their phone number. You can try reaching out to them that way. You can also look for estate sales, because heirs, people who inherit properties, often want nothing to do with them. The last primary residence that I owned, I bought from a couple siblings who inherited the property from their father who died, and it was a rental property when I bought it. It was in okay shape, but not fantastic shape. The heirs didn't want anything to do with it, so I got a good deal on the property. I moved in and just kind of gradually fixed it up over the next couple of years when I lived there. So look for some of those. That can be a great way to find deals from these heirs who just aren't that interested in the properties.
And a lot of these things are not only available on, the different software that we'll discuss for a little, in a little bit, but you can also sometimes look in the county publications or the county websites, and you'll see some of the listings for some of the stuff. Maybe not divorces, but divorces are on PropStream.
Yes, they
in
are.
some cases.
Yes, they are. And you can follow the oldie but goodie strategy of driving for dollars. You can look for vacant properties, rundown properties, properties that may be still occupied by tenants but are not very well taken care of. Absentee landlords. And we have a couple of links to help you with that. We have an article that goes into a great deal of detail about driving for dollars and how to do it. And there's a mobile app that makes this really easy as well, called Deal Machine. And we'll send a link to that in the comments here as well. Deal Machine's pretty cool. So you open the app on your phone, and with it you take a photo of a property, and it will it'll use your GPS data and the photo data to pull up that property and all of its public records. So it'll pull up the owner's name, the owner's information, contact details, when they bought the property, how much they bought it for, mortgages and liens, and with a single button, you can have Deal Machine send out a postcard to that owner, your template, your script, to get in touch with them and make them an offer on the property. So
And they are out there. I mean, I know with all that's going on, it may not seem, but I'm always my husband. I think he wants to hit me half the time, but every time we're driving somewhere, I'm like, ooh, look at that grass over there, or whatever.
So you're a real estate investor at heart.
Always.
But yeah, a lot of these people are tired landlords, and those are another great group of sellers to target, especially right now when there aren't really any foreclosures in the market, or not many. Tired landlords, people who have just had enough of the headaches of the ever increasing regulation, of the eviction moratorium being extended 5 times, tired of bad tenants, tired of bad contractors, tired of the never ending repairs and the maintenance. A lot of these tired landlords, they just want to make the pain go away, and they're willing to sell their properties at a very reasonable price if you can settle quickly and give them a sure settlement. So
And Edwin Torres adds, why wait to invest? A good deal is good in any time. If the numbers work, that's what matters. That's so true, too.
Yeah, Edwin, that's absolutely true. And a lot of investors try to get fancy with timing the market. Don't try to do that. I mean, that is a stock investors should know better than that. Real estate investors should know better than that with housing markets. Don't try to time the market, because today's price point could still be lower than tomorrow's dip. If let's say the housing market goes up by 20% over the next couple of years and then crashes by 15%, even if you were to buy at the very bottom of that crash, that pricing is still higher than today's pricing. So don't try to time the market. It never works out. There are people way better informed and smarter than you are who don't know how to time the market accurately and can't do it. So seriously, like Edwin said, look for deals that cash flow today, that make sense
Right.
today, and you can start earning a yield on these properties immediately. And don't worry about the appreciation or trying to speculate on how much it's going to go up in value over the next 2 years or whatever. Buy properties that make sense in today's market, today's rents, today's cash flow, and you can't go wrong.
Absolutely. What else, Brian, is there that?
Well, if all else fails, you can just go buy a turnkey property, right? I mean, you can find a property maybe in a cheaper market than where you live. A lot of us live in markets that aren't necessarily great for rental investing. Markets with either too strong regulation against landlords, or maybe the cap rates are low and don't make any sense. Maybe their home prices are too expensive, for it to be feasible to buy rental properties there. So go invest in a different market. Go find a city somewhere else with better cap rates, lower home prices, more landlord-friendly regulations and laws. So invest. Don't be afraid to invest long distance in today's world. You can buy a turnkey property that doesn't need any repairs or maintenance. Maybe that even already has a tenant in it. That's something you can do really easily nowadays, especially through platforms like Roofstock that are specifically designed for that.
Right.
So we added a link to Roofstock in the comments here, so you can check them out. But yeah, it's a platform for buying and selling turnkey rental properties, and they specialize in helping people do that long distance with really good transparency for each property listed, and a couple of really good guarantees. They guarantee that you're going to have a rent-paying tenant in there within 2 months, and they guarantee that you'll be happy with the property. And if not, there's a 30-day guarantee to basically return it. So, no, it's a great platform for long distance turnkey investing.
Absolutely. Do you have anything to add?
Well, I saw that Floyd Saunders said, except it's not over. I'm not entirely sure what he's referring to there. And I do appreciate the shout out here from Edwin. He says, "Love you guys. Take care." Edwin, we appreciate that. we very much do.
Absolutely.
Again, that we want this show to be interactive. We want this to be about you guys and what you want to hear about, and your questions. So, as always, you can always feel free to reach out to us by email, ask us questions live during these broadcasts. And on that note, no, Denny, I don't think there's anything else that I feel the need to get up on my soapbox about for today's episode. Do you?
No.
All right.
On your soapbox.
Well, on that note, please reach out to us anytime. You can message us through our Facebook page. You can email us, support@sparkrental.com. Let us know what you want to hear about next week, and we will catch you next Tuesday.
Actually, next week we have a guest.
That's true,
right?
Actually. We do have a guest next week. Becky Nova will be joining us again. She joined us maybe 6 months ago. We talked about how she reached financial independence with rentals in something like 2.5 years. It was really fast. And this time, we're going to talk a little bit more about that, but we're going to talk some more too about international real estate investing. She and her husband own some property in the Dominican Republic. And possibly elsewhere by now. I don't remember, but we'll have her on to talk about it next week. And by the way, Kayla asked what was the website for turnkey properties, and that is Roofstock. There's a link to it added in the comments here. And Brian Townsville said the moratorium stepping on landlords without payment. That is true. That is true. It's been a tough time. There's been no bailout for landlords, but
No,
you know,
no, not at all.
doesn't make real estate a bad investment. Although I will confess that it has made me reassess what role rental properties will play in my passive income portfolio for financial independence. Denny, you and I have been doing more land investing recently and less rental investing,
Hmm.
because land is virtually unregulated. So it's I have found it to be a much more investor friendly space. Um, but that is it's up to every single investor what kind of strategy they want to use to invest. And we've
Absolutely.
done some webinars on land investing. We've talked about it on the podcast a few times, and we will certainly talk more about that in the future as well. So on that note, we'll see you guys next Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Looking forward to having Becky Nova on the show. And we'll see you then. Have a good week.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us. Have a great week.
Have a good one, guys.